welcome back to Leadership Soundbites with RokoM and Michele. And this week's episode, we're going to be talking about the power of, are you ready for this?
Ready.
Problems. Problems. And when Roko and I started unpacking this or thinking about it, right, because it sounds so get real, but there's a quote that we ran across, and that's what I want to start us with. And it made me laugh, but there's a lot of reality in it. And so we're going to start with this. So I'm going to read it. And I'm looking down to read it because I'm not looking away this time anymore. So problems are like washing machines. They twist us, spin us, and knock us around. But in the end, we come out cleaner, brighter, and better than before. And I know it sounds, I mean, it made me chuckle. It made Roko chuckle. But the reality of it is, that's what problems do. It's reframing how we think about them. What do you think?
Yeah, I love that quote, Michele. Again, not only just because it made me laugh, but it really did speak to the whole process, right? When a problem first surfaces, you do get all twisted up in knots. You might be wanting to defend your space or blame someone else or just ignore it, pretend it's not there. But then when you do address it and you acknowledge it, that's when you can see all the possibilities if you're willing to truly problem solve and think through it. And that's where growth can happen. And to your point, the way you do that is through reframing it, right? That it,
So you and I, Roko and I went to, attended positive intelligence coaching, right? The PQ coaching. And in there, what he talks about is failure. He frames failure that way. So I'm going to interchange it with problems. But to look at failure as a gift and opportunity. And so look at problems as a gift and opportunity. Yeah. And when I think about that, I look back and as you and I were, prepping around this topic, is if I look back at the growth that I've had from the beginning of my career or even the last 5 years, I probably would have just been cruising along normal, but the exponential growth came from those problems, those things that I had to work through, that the team had to work through, that I came out the other end different and changed. And so I think that's the power in problems, if you will, is it challenges our thinking, our status quo, and it potentially can send us in a different direction. Look at COVID. COVID was a problem.
Yeah, it gives us so many new perspectives that you wouldn't have had if you hadn't experienced the problem. Yeah, it really does challenge our thinking. It challenges us to reach out and better understand other people's perspectives or experiences. And with that, you learn a whole new world exists than what you had originally thought of, right? Because, we live our lives within our own biases, our own perspectives. And as we seek to understand, we find out, there's all these other experiences that people have had that weren't my own. And it gives you an opportunity to see other possibilities. So,
well, so I want to go back to COVID because I don't want to leave that hanging and people going, what are you talking about? There's something in my brain specifically that I wanted to reference regarding that. We had some underlying assumptions about, and there's a lot of industries across this world about how we could come together, work that had to be done in the physical location, and the very thin slice of work that could be done remotely, that you can't manage teams that are across geographies, that you literally had to be in person with them. And if you look at where we are now, almost 2 years later, from, the middle of March is when we went remote, right, 2 years ago, to where we are today, it's commonplace. We're on Zoom calls, we're on video stuff. You've got people that are so comfortable with it now. You've got people that are able to have the time that they would commute back and forth to work, more personal time, or you literally, it's not probably not the upside, but can spend more time working, right? So I just think there's so many things that if we can just, when the problem hits, ask ourselves, what can we learn from this? Where's the opportunity? Where's the gift in what's happening right now that was not planned? Because most of us don't plan problems.
Yeah, what I love what you just did is you asked questions, right? Of yourself rather than staying in that space of this can't be done, oh, woe is me, and just really sticking with and focusing on the problem itself that's presented, the situation. You step back and was neutral and asked yourself questions about what is possible, what could be done, even if it's incremental. Maybe it's not a big change, but what is possible? And just asking those simple questions of yourself is a way of shifting your mind. And, to go back to that positive program that we were in, one of the things that he talked about was, when you start to feel tense, start to be aware of yourself. When you start to feel tense or you start to feel like you're defending yourself or, whatever those feelings are, if you just do a simple distraction of your brain, it helps to allow you to reframe your perspective. And to this day, I'll still move because he was saying, feel your fingertips, and really feel the ridges of your fingertips. And it just for that moment. I mean, it's not like I'm doing it for 10 minutes. I mean, even just for 5 seconds, it distracts my brain enough to allow me to step back, rethink, okay, yes, this situation exists, but now what can we do about it? So little things like that. Questions.
So mine, right? I don't do this as much, but it's the breathing, right? So you focus in and breathing out. But and I always had trouble with focusing on your breath, right? But what he said was focus on the temperature of your breath as you breathe in. Focus on the temperature of your breath, and believe it or not, there's a difference.
There is.
And so that was enough to shift me. But the other thing that comes to mind is, if we're in this space of feeling overwhelmed, right? A problem hits, maybe we're frustrated, we're angry that something else, there's a roadblock, a barrier, something's happening, right? Things are not working out how we think. If we're in that emotionally charged space, which will happen, right? If we, depending on our perspective, we lose the ability to critically think. So what you're talking about too is getting back into that space that, okay, let's shift it and go, okay, this is a gift. Which, believe me, plenty of us are going to rebel against that first initial thought. Okay. You're like, no, it's not. But this is a gift. And so what am I learning from it? What can we do differently about this? How do we address it differently? And so it's not this battle, arm wrestling kind of thing that you're going into. And to your point, denial at some point. But if we can get out of that emotionally charged space, and that's going to be, how are we framing the problem? How are we framing how we think about the problem?
Yeah, I love it. I love it. So reframing by asking yourself questions, being aware of your emotions so that you can trigger yourself in some way to pause, reset yourself so that you can think forward around the problems. And so it goes to that quote, turn your obstacles into opportunities and your problem into possibilities.
I love it, because that was the one I was just going to go to too. I'm like, oh my God, I love this quote. So Roko, what do we want? And I know you just kind of recapped a couple things. What's one thing you want people to walk away with?
Reframing your perspective. Problems will happen. It's a given, but look at it as an opportunity. There is growth on the other side of that problem.
So thank you. Mine is not just, don't go on blind faith. Actually take a look at your own life and your own career and just glance back for a minute and see how far you've come and think about what the trigger was to that growth. And then step in and start looking at problems differently, right? Because there's a lot of power in them, and there's a lot of power to switch who we are and how we approach stuff. So this is RokoM Michele. This week's episode of Leadership Soundbites, The Power of Problems. Please, like, subscribe, and share. And we look forward to next time. So have a great one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.